Hey, how are you doing, girl? Um, Good morning. Today is the 18th of October, 2018, and I just wanted to welcome you to our conversation today. So, I took a big trip yesterday to Huntington Beach. It was an all-day work trip, and I'm so impressed with myself. I got into the car and just drove from Lompoc all the way down to Huntington Beach. That was about, really, it was about, with traffic, well, it was easily a 3 hour drive. And with traffic, it was probably 4.5 hours. Well, maybe four. So that's a 4 hour drive there, and then it was a 4 hour drive back. And I did that all in the same day. I impressed myself. That was pretty amazing. That's quite a challenge to sort of navigate traffic for hours and hours and hours on end without incident. I was basically driving for like 8 hours. I don't think I ever drove that. I've driven that far before and that long before, but I haven't done it recently. I'm sort of a wimp these days when it comes to driving, but I've gotten a lot stronger. Yeah, I think I routinely drive an hour or two every day, or every few days, I suppose, consecutively. And I don't know. It's just, I'm proud of myself. I'm feeling proud right now about my physical abilities. I'm feeling, I don't know, proud that I was able to pay that close attention to the road for that long. It's pretty amazing. The human brain is just amazing. I'm just stunned by it. So anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a wonderful day yesterday. And well, let's start our little presentation here with the reading of Peaceful Living book, Daily Meditations for Peace by Mary Mackenzie. So today is October 18th, and it starts with a quote. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Mary Curie. That, by the way, is a fantastic quote. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Oh, wow. I think that's probably an exaggeration. She's exaggerating to make a point. Certainly, if a bear is barreling towards you with its claws outstretched and its teeth baring its teeth, that is probably something to be feared. But you know what? It could also be understood. And I think, it's funny. Fear is essentially, it's essentially a judgment. I know it sounds strange, but when you make a fear, you're making an emotional judgment, some kind of evaluation that something is not for you, right? It's not good for you. And so now there are other ways to describe the world. One can describe the world with a non-judgmental description. So there are judgmental descriptions and non-judgmental descriptions. That example that I posed earlier about a bear baring its teeth and barreling towards you. What? There are two ways, now that I think about it, there are two ways, at least two ways, to sort of describe that situation. You could describe it as a naturalist who is an enthusiast of bear behavior and, see wonder and amazement and beauty in the response of a bear that's, say, baring its teeth. And then you could also view the bear barreling towards you as if you were, say, a soon-to-be victim of a bear's presence. So, really it's about perspective. And if you take 100 people, line them up, and then have bears barreling after them one by one in exactly the same situation, you're going to get probably a range of behaviors that each of those 100 people will respond to that bear with. And I have a feeling that some people would be rather nonchalant, and other people would be rather terrified. And so you might ask yourself, what is it? What is it that determines what behavior people will act or exercise in any certain situation? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the thoughts that are in their mind at the time. What's their attitude toward the situation, right? Is it one of discovery, curiosity? Maybe is it one of appreciation? And then there are attitudes that are more vulnerable, attitudes that are more fear-inspiring, right? There are fearful attitudes, anxious attitudes, worrisome attitudes. So I guess the question is, no matter what happens in life, what attitude are you bringing to bear on your life situation? Are you bringing to bear an attitude that is mostly sort of a victim attitude? Or are you bringing to bear, one powerful attitude is just one of curiosity, where you've got essentially it's an openness. I think that human beings, one of their most fundamental, one of their most fundamental characteristics, I would say the most fundamental characteristic, is one of openness. It's this one of openness to experience. It's sort of like a willingness to decide not to judge in the moment. And, I think this aspect of human nature, for interesting reasons, it's not necessarily, how should I say, transmitted in the media very well. But I think that human beings are really quite open to the world, and experiencing what's in it. I think it's a natural state. I think people want to walk into situations, step into situations with an open mind. That is definitely a virtue. And a virtue, I think that it goes unstated quite often. And so anyway, I want to talk more about this idea of openness and how critical it is to living a happy life. Particularly, I'm going to pair openness with something called a non-judgmental description of your life situation, a non-judgmental description of external events. Yeah. If you compare openness with non-judgmental descriptions of the world around you, I think that is potentially a really strong tool to help you get the most out of life, enjoy it, no matter what happens. If you get struck by a car and turn into a paraplegic, or if you get attacked by a bear, I think that if you can maintain an attitude of openness and pair that with the ability to describe your experience in a non-judgmental way. And when I say describing your experience in a non-judgmental way, I'm talking about how would a video camera, if you were looking at a video camera, how would the video camera itself as a machine pick up the scene? So if you could describe your world in terms that a video camera would use, that's a very analytical, dispassionate, non-judgmental view of what is passing through the camera screen. I think that's a very powerful tool. And they can give you perspective, right? There's the non-judgmental perspective, and then there's a judgmental perspective. And whatever judgment you have, you can choose your flavor, the flavor of judgment. Every person, some people respond with sadness to a situation or anger to a situation, some with fear, right? And people's personalities, their minds have certain tendencies to present attitudes like sadness or anger or fear one way or the other. They're just more prone to it. For example, my personality is probably more prone toward sadness and fear. Those are, I would guess, habitual emotions that I tend to fall into pretty easily. Other people have different habitual emotions that they fall into pretty characteristically, and so it's that those aspects may not readily be changed. It's not easy to change your personality characteristics over time. It's actually quite a challenge. Though I would think that this idea of sort of walking into each situation with an open mind and a willingness to describe the external situation non-judgmentally would definitely be helpful. Anyway, let's move on to Mary McKenzie's passage. So Mary McKenzie's thoughts start with the subtitle, Clarifying Feelings. Mary McKenzie states, "When you express your feelings, try to use words that convey emotions rather than thoughts. Emotion words include sadness, happy, excitement, joy, fear, and hurt. Thought words express a judgment about someone else, such as feeling manipulated, abandoned, rejected, or abused. Each of these words expresses your opinion of the other person's actions, that she is manipulative or abusive, or that she has abandoned or rejected you. When we focus on how we actually feel about something rather than judge the other person, we are more likely to be heard. If your wife made plans to go away for the weekend without discussing it with you first, you might feel annoyed, hurt, angry, or confused. If you tell her that you feel abandoned or rejected, she's likely to respond defensively. Express your feelings in a way that connects to others and yourself rather than mixing in your opinions and judgments, which can lead you to a disconnect. Disconnecting promotes argument. Connecting promotes resolution." So the statement is, today, focus on expressing your feelings rather than thoughts in an effort to connect more deeply with yourself and others. Okay, I disagree with Mary McKenzie in this passage. I don't think it is wise to think more and to express yourself in feelings about how you're feeling about a situation and overriding your, just say, what I'd call neutral thoughts about a situation. This is essentially, there's a contradiction in this passage. She talks about the benefits of speaking in emotions, and then in the very later in the paragraph, she talks about if you tell her that you feel abandoned or rejected, she is likely to respond defensively. But of course, she's also talking about another kind of distinction. She's making a distinction between emotions and judgments. Judgments are these loaded thoughts that sort of imply wrongdoing on the part of another person. Like when you say rejected, when you say I'm feeling rejected, you're basically implying wrongdoing on someone else, that they rejected you, right? You're sort of implying an intention without even asking them whether they rejected you or not. You're sort of telling them that you imagine that they were rejecting you, which is probably a little presumptuous. In fact, it is presumptuous. That is, you're presuming something is true without checking with them first. So I don't know. This passage is a little bit confused. and I'm not too happy with it. So I think, so here's what I'm not too happy about. I don't know. Here's the thing. When you, I think that a lot of emotions, it's fine to convey your emotions to other people, and in what I'd call in a measured way. But it's very easy to trigger someone and have them get defensive when you start talking in the language of emotions all the time, particularly if they are negative emotions. I think you'll have a tendency to trigger people, and they'll get defensive pretty quick. And I don't think it's a wise policy. Now, I think it's important for a person to manage their emotions, to deal with their emotions using self-empathy techniques. If you're feeling an emotion, it's important to spend some quiet time giving yourself empathy, reflecting on why you might be feeling the emotions, reflecting on the purpose of the emotion in the moment, and how that emotion can be helpful to you and support you as you grow and unfold and mature. And that is an internal reflection. And there's also a place for expressing emotion. And it feels good to express emotion. It's very cathartic. That's a Freudian psychoanalytic term, catharsis. It's sort of a relieving, it's basically a time when you've been acknowledged and witnessed for your feelings. And that itself is very relieving and very healing. It's really good to get those feelings out so that you can, get witnessed, so that you could experience understanding with another person. But I think it's important to sort of express those emotions in a measured way, particularly to just like a friend or a family member. You might want to get permission and sort of say, hey, I've got these emotions coming up. Maybe I could spend some time, and maybe in a non-judgmental way, we could have a conversation, and maybe I can sort of express what I'm feeling right now. Basically get that permission first, because a lot of people have, sometimes if you just sort of express these really powerful emotions, other people can respond as if sort of they're being sort of dumped on, right? And that can be a problem in an emotional in a relationship. So the managing of big emotions in relationships is a real challenge. And I guess my advice, if I have any advice, is be thoughtful about how and when you convey it. And there are helpful ways to express emotion, and there are unhelpful ways to express it. So very good. So thank you very much for your input, Mary. It was definitely an interesting passage. All right, so I guess what I'll do is I'll continue here with some questions. And you might ask, well, why am I doing this? Why am I going through these questions in this ebook? There is a distinct reason for it, and I'll just say it. I think that, I would like, and I would encourage us to learn about each other. And I have a sense that you may not know a lot about me, and I wanted to just give you the benefit of knowing who I am. We don't spend a lot of time together, and so I wanted to give you this information as a resource to you. I want you to be able to say, yeah, I know what my dad was like, or I know what my dad is like. I know what his life was like, and what his preferences were I'd like you to be able to say to yourself and others, like, I knew my dad. I knew who he was, you know? And so this is the intention of this question answering and these presentations. I want to give you a sense of who I am so that you know. So anyway, that's the reason. All right, so let's move on. So right now, we're on question number 54. Can you play an instrument? All right. So, yeah, I can play an instrument. I can play the trumpet. Now, it's been a long, long time since I played the trumpet. It's been a good 20 years since I picked it up. I learned how to play trumpet in middle school when I was in band. And I enjoyed playing the trumpet. My dad wanted me to play guitar. And now that I think about it, it might have been a slightly better instrument. Mainly because trumpets are pretty loud. And so because of that, I'm constrained. I can't necessarily play a trumpet, say, in my bedroom apartment if I've got neighbors surrounding me in the walls. Trumpets are... Now, of course, I guess I could put a mute in a trumpet, but who likes to play a trumpet with a mute on it? Maybe I just need to develop that appreciation for playing a trumpet with a mute on it. A lot of jazz players, they continuously play their trumpets with mutes in them, in the bell. And I just never really learned to enjoy the sound of a muted trumpet. And that's something that I could learn to enjoy. Here's the thing, even a muted trumpet is actually also quite loud. A person can play a guitar or even a piano softly. Now that I think about it, it's really hard to play a piano softly. But one can play a guitar softly. Here's the thing about me and guitars. I have a tendency to get carpal tunnel syndrome. And so when I flick my fingers across the strings, when I strum them, I have a tendency to tense up these muscles, and the tendons get a little inflamed in my wrist. Now, I haven't done that lately, so maybe what I could do is I could do a little practice. I actually happen to own a ukulele. I've got a ukulele, and I have been known to practice it. I've been known to play it and play some songs. I've even been known to make songs. In fact, I even wrote a couple songs, really simple ones. And so, I could get the ukulele out and play a little bit. That sounds like a pretty good idea. I might just go ahead and do that. Here's the thing. I've got so much going on right now that playing instruments and learning to play is just not taking my time or attention. I've got so many other pulls on my attention right now that even though I might have this intention to pull out the ukulele and play it a little while, I think I'll quickly get distracted in some other project or feel like I need to move on to do something else. I guess, really it just boils down to productivity. I could fit it in if I wanted to fit it in. Our lives are flexible. Time is flexible. I could probably spend 5 minutes on the ukulele or even 10 minutes a day, and that might be enough. That might be enough to make good progress on it and learning that instrument. And that's definitely something I could work on. I'll give it some thought. So to answer the question, yes, I know how to play the trumpet, but so what level of expertise or skill have I got in playing the trumpet? Well, I would guess I'm definitely beginner level. beginner, you know. I know how to read music, though the notes that I can read are definitely on the staff. When the notes start getting a little higher than the staff and a little lower than the staff, um, I know I'm gonna have a hard time remembering the notes. And then also some of the key changes, like from flat and natural and sharp. I definitely need to brush up on some of that right now. You know, it's kind of interesting. When I was a kid, I had about this much mental capacity to learn music. Now that I'm an adult, I have basically a very mature way of learning, and it's a lot more full-fledged. You know, I've got a lot more skill when it comes to memorization. I could probably make a lot of progress on the trumpet if I tried. Although I think I'd rather start playing the ukulele because, like I mentioned, trumpets are actually kind of loud. I'd have to play the trumpet out of doors. Playing a trumpet out of doors is not the most fun thing because trumpets are made of metal and they get cold. And so you're basically holding this cold piece of metal. I've been on marching bands before. I've done marching bands, and so I know what holding a cold trumpet is like. So anyway, let's move on to the next question. Question number 55. Are you a good comedian? So believe it or not, you may not know this, but I was the class clown in my freshman class in high school. And I think I maintained a class clown type personality as a freshman and probably as a sophomore. And then I think I kind of lost that as a junior and as a senior. I kind of got a lot more serious. And, you know, it's kind of interesting. It was actually quite amusing for me to be a class clown. I'm not sure what in my personality triggered or what in my personality drove me to be a class clown. I think I just had so much energy of personality back then. And I was willing to exercise that energy. And I was also pretty sharp-witted. I think I had really good instincts for humor at the time. And, you know, that really just comes from practice. And I think I also had an interest in jokes and learning and memorizing jokes and expressing myself in the written word and in speaking those jokes, saying them regularly during conversations. And, you know, it makes me wonder whether I could return to that. I've pretty serious up. After that time, I got pretty serious, certainly during my late high school and early college years. And particularly during early college, I think I got real serious. And sometimes I long for the comedian part of me to return again, to be resurrected. Because I could use it. I could use a little bit of lightening up. And so, no, I'm not a very good comedian right now. But there was a time in my life when that was the most important thing in my life. And, you know, I appreciate that phase that I had in my life. It helps me remember that I can be a lot more flexible. That I can actually change my personality if I want. And I think that's valuable information. I'm sure it would change over a period of years. And you know what? I guess I'm subtly asking myself to do that right now, right? Okay. Very good. All right, what's the next question? Question number 56. Can you act? No, I'm not really good at acting. I mean, I can act in some small. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an actor at all. I I don't think I can act. I haven't had a lot of practice acting. I did like in high school I had a speech class, and in that class we did plays. The play that I did was Harry and Maude, and I was Harry. Now, if you may not be familiar with the story Harry and Maude, but it's just an odd couple pair, a dialogue between the two people, different generations, different genders, and it's just somewhat profound philosophical work of art. And in fact, I really ought to probably watch the movie. I don't think I ever did watch the movie. So I tried to act and I just haven't had a lot of practice. I haven't had a lot of practice, so I don't quite know what I'm doing, and I think I easily get stuck. So no, I don't know really how to act. I think upon the idea, though, that I could imagine going to Allen Hancock College and taking an acting class. Sometimes I think about how nice an idea that would be. I think I'd like to do some kind of. Uh, I think they've got a couple acting classes that even a person like me could take. It'd be a good idea. You know what? Maybe I could do that. I could possibly do that. One thing that concerns me a little bit about acting, though, is I would have to memorize lines. And that's kind of a challenge for me. I think you and I both have the same brain, and that we're both challenged with memorization. But I think really it probably boils down to technique and patience. I remember when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of patience, and though as an adult I have a lot more patience. So maybe it might be easier for me to memorize lines in the future. All right. So what's the next question? Are you a good writer? Number 57. Yes, I consider myself to be a good writer. I, like you, have a facility with language. Language comes rather easily to me. Though I'll tell you, speaking doesn't necessarily come easy to me. No, I think that's fine. I think I'm pretty good with speaking. Right now, though, I'm feeling like my speech is a little rough. Though, so I do consider myself a good writer. I write all the time. I write emails. I write letters to you. I write in my journal. I write notes to myself. I also type messages, text messages, and type messages into my phone, reminders to do items, things like that. And I think that I can put a sentence together. I can string the words together. And I've developed a style of writing which I enjoy. And so I get a lot of pleasure out of the writing that I do. And really, honestly, I'd like to write more. I would be interested in writing little stories, or we could even write together. That might be an interesting idea. And I know at one time you were writing me letters that had little poems in them. And I'll tell you, let me say, I was just touched by what I read. I was so happy to read those poems, and I still have a vivid memory of them. I think I might want to dig those poems out and, appreciate them more deeply. In fact, I might just go do that. Because I was really touched to see the poetry that you wrote in the letter. And I think I remember I wrote some poems to you. In fact, oh yeah, I remember that. In response, I wrote some poems back. So, I think that's something that it might be something that we can communicate with and exchange. We can exchange with one another our writing. I think that might be a lot of fun. I would like to do that again. So am I a good writer? Yeah, I think I'm a pretty good writer. What makes me a good writer? I don't know. I think partly I just enjoy it. I just enjoy the writing, and yeah, I just enjoy it. Okay, next question. Question number 58. Do you wish you were excellent in any of the above? Oh, swimming, skiing, instrument playing, comedian, acting, writing. Do you wish you were excellent in any of the above? Well, of course, yeah. I'm actually pretty good. Of those things, I'm a good writer. And the rest of the things I'm just okay. I'm just okay at, or I haven't had a lot of practice. So yeah, sure, of course. I wish I was excellent at everything I did. But here's the thing, I'm not excellent at everything I do. I struggle. I'm not a perfect 10 when it comes to every activity that I perform. And I like everyone else. I'm learning as I'm going. And certainly if I devote time and attention to something, I get better and better. And there's so many things out there in the world. I just don't have the time to devote the time and attention to it. So, question number 59. Have you been bungee jumping? No, I haven't. Now, I've had some opportunities to bungee jump, but I've said no to those opportunities. So, yeah. Bungee jumping used to be really popular. Well, I guess it was during the 80s or 90s. Maybe it was during the 90s and the 1990s. And I have not seen a lot of bungee jumping. Now, that's not to say I've not seen some bungee jumping lately. I remember seeing this YouTube video of this movie star bungee jumping out of a helicopter over the Grand Canyon or something like that. And that was interesting. But I don't see that trend of bungee jumping happening very much. These days I would be open to it. I would definitely be open to bungee jumping. I don't know if you have an interest in bungee jumping, Emily, but if you did, we could explore that interest together. I'd be open to it. I wouldn't mind it. Question number 60. Have you been kayaking? No, I've never been kayaking. Now, that's not to say I've never been in a canoe. I have been in a canoe. Lloyd and Suzanne have a canoe, and I've been in it. And I think I was in it with you. Pretty sure I was in it with you. So, yeah, that's out at the lake up north. What is it? San Antonio Lake, I think. But I've never been kayaking. Do I have an interest in going kayaking? Sure. It's not a really strong interest. But that sounds like an interesting thing to do on the water. I do have an interest in stand-up paddleboarding. And stand-up paddleboarding and sit-on-top kayaking are almost the same thing. One of those things you're standing, and the other one of those things you're sitting. It might be easier just to do the sitting on top of the sit-on-top kayak. It might be a little easier. So, I'm willing to try either one of those, the kayaking or the stand-up paddleboarding. So, next question. What is your favorite holiday? Well, I like pretty much all the holidays. I would say my favorite, though, is probably Christmas. And then Thanksgiving and Christmas are probably up there as two of my favorites. Why Thanksgiving and Christmas? I have no idea. I think I really like the Christmas tree and the Christmas tree lights and the candy canes of Christmas, and I like Christmas a lot. There's a lot to like about Christmas. Maybe I could go on like a Christmas movie binge, or that sounds like fun. Maybe I could play up these holidays as they're coming. I mean, this is another holiday season, and we've got, it's already mid-October, and Halloween's going to be coming around the bend here. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe that's what my plans will be. I'll explore and enjoy the holiday season a little bit more than usual. That might be a lot of fun. I think I could be really get into that. So I guess, like I mentioned, my favorite holiday is Christmas, and then followed by Thanksgiving. And then what's my next favorite holiday? Gosh, I don't know. It's hard to say. The other holidays, maybe St. Patrick's Day. I like St. Patrick's Day. And then, oh, Valentine's Day. That could be a bittersweet holiday. And then let's see what else. Um, I guess those are the notable holidays. Only recently has Halloween become interesting to me. And Halloween is, I'm not necessarily a fan of like the supernatural, fear inspiring horror aspects of Halloween. I might be a little bit more into the Day of the Dead. Although that's not necessarily. Here's the thing. I'm trying to find enjoyment out of the holiday, and I don't necessarily find enjoyment from fear-inspiring images. I'm not a person who really enjoys the horror genre of movies. I don't necessarily care to subject myself to some of the more fear-inspiring aspects of life, particularly in movies. And so, they're intriguing. And, I was a lot more intrigued by it when I was a kid, right? I was intrigued by Dracula and Frankenstein and the Bermuda Triangle and Bigfoot and all these other sort of paranormal type descriptions of the world. And, since growing up, and sort of recognizing what the supernatural is for what it is, I've not been as interested in the subject. And this whole idea of being scared is just not that appealing to me. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I went to go see Jaws, the movie. That was the movie about the shark, right? And that was pretty fear inspiring. When I saw it, I might have been like 9 or 10 years old. So I was still pretty young. And it didn't necessarily leave a favorable impression in my mind. It's not like after that I went to go see a lot more shark movies. So I don't know. I'm just not into the horror stuff. But what I am into, though, I like dress up and costume and fanciful, fantastic type dress up. So that is interesting to me. That is an aspect of Halloween that I can sort of sink my teeth into. So I like that sort of romantic, dreamy, enchanted aspect of dressing up and costume that is Halloween. The skeletons and the witches and the ghosts, I'm just not that interested in. So maybe that'll give you a little bit more clarity on where I'm coming from when it comes to Halloween. So let's see, what is the next question? What makes it so special? Okay, so Christmas. What makes the Christmas holiday so special? Well, I just have really positive associations with the colors red and green. I remember coloring in coloring books, red and green pictures related to Christmas as a kid, and those were powerful memories, very enjoyable memories. There's something about the coziness of a Christmas scene or a Christmas setting. There's something about how inviting it is, the treats and the dinner table. And, when I say treats, I mean like the candies, like the cakes and the pies and the candy and the chocolate. There's something appealing. I like the attitude of Christmas. It's celebratory nature. It's focus on goodwill toward men, or goodwill toward all. And I don't know, I like the Christmas carols. I love singing them. They sure are enjoyable to sing and listen to. They sort of perk me up. They're they're quite optimistic and sentimental. And, these are aspects of even my personality. I recognize that are just a big part of the attitudes that I sort of conveniently or reflexively respond to. And so, there's a commonality there. I like how people tend to be in a good mood around Christmas time. And I also like the aspect of people getting together with relatives and getting together with friends in a jovial setting and celebrating that holiday. And I also like the paraphernalia, or the accessories related to Christmas. I love the Christmas tree. I love the Christmas tree lights. What can I say? I just have a lot of sort of fanciful, festive ideas when I see those symbols. I like the tinsel, and I like the Christmas tree lights on houses, and I don't know. There's a lot I like about it. I like the presents. I like the stockings. I like the idea of the fireplace and the Yule logs and things like that. So, I like that stuff. And let me turn off my cell phone here. So, I like that stuff. I like Christmas. And what do I like about Thanksgiving? That's my second favorite holiday. Well, first of all, what's not to like about Thanksgiving? I like it for essentially the same reasons. Although what's interesting is that there are not necessarily any colors associated with, I guess there are. Orange and brown, I would guess, are the colors associated with Christmas. With Thanksgiving. I don't know, I think I like Christmas and Thanksgiving because they're basically the same holiday. There are some significant differences, I guess. One is more focused on getting together in a feast-like setting with family, and the other one is more of a celebration with externalities. So anyway, that's why I like them both. All right, so question number 63. Make up your own holiday. What would it be like? Okay. Well, if I were to make up a holiday, I think it would be maybe a holiday focused on visiting a tropical island. That's right, it would be tropical island day. Let's make it easy. It would be tropical island day, where people would walk barefoot on the beach, and they'd have Mai Tais under the palm trees, and they'd watch sunsets, and it would be like a beach day. And there would be warm, clear water. Yeah, tropical holiday day. That sounds pretty good. All right, so let's turn this down. So, yeah, that would be the holiday that I would create if I could create one, where everyone. I just really enjoy tropical scenes and tropical environments and tropical events. I like tropical music. Yeah, now we're talking. All right, what's the next question? Question number 64. Do you have a favorite zoo wild animal? Well, I do have a few favorites. For example, I like the lions. And I guess the gorillas. I like the gorillas and monkeys. I would guess that those are probably my favorite. Other ones I like to see the giraffes. What can I say? But I think my favorite would be the monkeys because they're so like us. They're so similar to us. Also I like the dolphins. The dolphins, again, for the same reason. It's like looking at another person When I'm looking at them, they're, you can see how expressive they are and how intelligent they are just by looking at them. And I think, that is a significant aspect of why I enjoy talking to these animals or being near these animals. And the same is true with dogs. I get that sense of connection with the dogs as much as I get them with the dolphins, as much as I get them with the monkeys. And, I really appreciate that. Now, some animals that I don't necessarily care to look at when I'm at the zoo, like, it's hard, it's quite often the reptile exhibits are interesting. But I may not spend a lot of time looking at the reptiles. It depends. I like to look at the coloration. Sometimes I look at them to remind myself about what to avoid in the future. Like, I'll look at the coral snake and I'll say, oh yeah, avoid the coral snake. Yeah, I use them as sort of reminders about what to avoid. Um, I like looking at the birds. But I think the most compelling animals are the ones that I'm able to make some kind of emotional connection with. So that would include, like I mentioned, the gorillas and the and the dolphins. All right. Next question. Do you like sports? Question number 65. So when I was growing up, my dad and we watched basketball. And I think we watched some football too. And so I actually got to enjoy watching those sports a lot when I was a kid. And I still remember the old basketball games between the Lakers and the Celtics, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That was an amazing time for basketball. And I remember watching football too, and there's a lot to enjoy about watching sports. But today, I really don't watch sports. It's been years since I've watched sports. And when the Super Bowl comes along or March Madness comes along, I'm always like, what's going on? you know, like who's playing who, and it's just not significant to me. Not like it used to be when I was like a teenager. So, no, I don't watch sports. Do I like sports? Sure. But here's the thing. I tend to get injured when I play team sports. Like, I was playing volleyball last year, and I jammed my finger. Some rogue volleyball hit my finger, and my finger it's almost been a year, and this, even though it's functioning properly now, thankfully, and I have full functionality, I still am feeling at times that it's not quite healed. So yeah, I enjoy team sports. They're a lot of fun. And I'm certainly willing to play them for a time, but probably not as aggressively as I possibly could. Because I don't want to get injured. It's really easy to get injured when you've got a bunch of people who are just sort of hurling themselves at each other trying to get a ball. But yeah, I like sports. Like, I used to be really into racquetball. I'd play racquetball in college. I like watching runners run. I especially like watching triathlons, like the triathletes that do the Ironman. That is something I really like. I like the coverage that the sports programs provide, and I don't know, for some reason I find it fascinating. I like in particular the Ironman triathlon. And so I would watch movies and shows about that sport. Other sports that I don't really care for are golf. I think of it as rather dull as I'm watching it. Baseball, again, is another sport where I think is kind of dull to watch, and I don't really watch it. Even horse racing, I'm just not into horse racing. So if I were to say that there were any sports that I enjoyed watching, I could say that I can't enjoy football and basketball. Those I think are the two main sports that I would enjoy watching. And I can watch soccer for a time, but for me, soccer loses its interest after a little while. Um, Now, if I played soccer more often, then maybe I would watch it more. There's a sport that I enjoy watching. Like I like watching skiing movies, movies that show people skiing really tough runs or really enjoying a certain type of skiing. I like those kind of movies, those adventure movies, right? And so, yeah, I like sports. I just don't happen to play team sports very often. And I could watch sports, but I just don't happen to watch the sports. Here's the thing, I kind of think of watching sports as being a somewhat passive activity that doesn't have a lot of value. I don't think there's a whole lot of learning that can take place. I mean, possibly there is, but I don't think it's very valuable. And actually, for that reason, I think I'm a little bit biased about watching sports. I question its benefit. Like I think it might be better for me to read a book or do anything really, do chores, clean my bedroom, do the dishes. Something at least that can help me further my aims, further my values in my life. Watching sports, now playing sports, that is something that can further my values. And so I think I'm a lot more interested in playing sports than I am in just simply watching it. Watching it for entertainment just seems like too much of a waste of time. And so really for that reason, I don't watch it very often. But I like it. I like sports in general, and I could probably get into watching pretty much any sport, except for except for baseball and golf. And you know what? Yeah, I even like watching tennis for a time, but I don't think I could watch like a whole lot of it. I've also been experiencing watching volleyball, and you know what? I'm actually I can get into watching volleyball. I've been a little bit surprised about how much I can enjoy watching a game of volleyball on television or on the computer or something like that. All right. So, question number 67, what is your favorite food and why? Well, I'll get into that later. I'm going to wrap things up here. Emily, I just want to say that I've enjoyed spending this time with you, and I've enjoyed sort of working out what I'm going to do and say over this period of time. I really am hoping that you get a sense of who I am as a person, a sense of getting to know me, and kind of knowing who I am and where I'm coming from and what I'm like. And so for me, that knowing that I've conveyed those parts of my personality is valuable to me, and I hope is valuable to you, to give you some insight into who I am and who your dad is. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you have a wonderful Thursday. I hope that you enjoy your school day, enjoy your classes, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right? I love you, girl. Bye-bye.